What if I told you that the most dangerous narcissist you'll ever encounter is the one who never raises their voice, never demands attention, and everyone thinks is just a nice, quiet person? Listen to me carefully. The covert narcissist sitting next to you in church, at your office, or across from you at the dinner table is more dangerous than the loudmouth who beats his chest and tells everyone how great he is. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, and they're everywhere. You probably know one right now. You might even be married to one. We've talked about classic narcissists, malignant narcissists. But today we're going under the radar. We're talking about the ones who hide in plain sight, who've perfected the art of manipulation so well that their victims don't even know they're being manipulated. Listen, I've been doing this for 45 years, and I'm telling you, these people will destroy you so quietly you won't even know what hit you. Here's what makes them so dangerous. They don't scream for attention. They manipulate for it, while the classic narcissist is beating his chest, demanding everyone look at him. The covert narcissist is quietly sabotaging your life. They're not throwing tantrums in restaurants or making scenes at family gatherings. No, they're much more sophisticated than that. They're playing the long game, and they're damn good at it. I told you before, I think my father was a covert narcissist. And let me tell you something, it took me years to figure it out. Years! Here I am, supposedly an expert on human behavior, and I couldn't see what was right in front of me. You know why? Because he was so good at playing the victim, so good at making everyone else feel sorry for him, that I spent most of my childhood trying to fix him instead of recognizing that he was the one doing the damage. That's their superpower. They make you feel like you're the problem while they're quietly destroying your self-esteem, your relationships, and your peace of mind. They don't need to be the center of attention because they've made you orbit around them. They don't need to tell you how great they are because they've convinced you that you're not good enough. Think about it. Have you ever had someone in your life who seemed humble and self-effacing, but somehow you always felt worse about yourself after being around them? Someone who never seemed to do anything obviously wrong, but you always walked away from conversations with them feeling drained, confused, or somehow diminished. That's the covert narcissist calling card. They're not just quiet narcissists, they're strategic narcissists. Every move is calculated. Every sigh is purposeful. Every poor me story is designed to manipulate your emotions and get you to do what they want. They've studied you like a chess master studies the board, and they know exactly which buttons to push to get the response they're looking for. The classic narcissist is like a tornado, loud, destructive, and you can see it coming from miles away. But the covert narcissist, they're like carbon monoxide, silent, odorless, and by the time you realize what's happening, they've already got their hooks in you. They've already rewired your brain to make you feel responsible for their emotions, guilty for your successes, and constantly walking on eggshells around their fragile ego. They don't tell you they're better than you. They make you feel like you're not good enough for them. They don't demand your attention. They manipulate it by making you feel sorry for them. They don't boast about their achievements. They make you feel guilty about yours. It's psychological warfare disguised as vulnerability. Here's what really gets me fired up about these people. They use your compassion against you. They take your natural human instinct to help someone who's suffering and weaponize it. They turn your kindness into their control mechanism. They make you feel like a bad person for not constantly rescuing them from their self-created drama. And the worst part, everyone else sees them as the nice one. They're the martyrs, the long-suffering saints who just can't catch a break. Meanwhile, you're the one who looks like the bad guy when you finally start setting boundaries or calling out their behavior. You're the one who gets labeled as difficult or unsupportive when you stop playing their games. By the time you realize what's happening, they've already isolated you from your support system, convinced you that your perceptions are wrong, and made you dependent on their version of reality. They've turned you into a supporting character in their victim story, and you don't even know how you got there. That's the danger of the covert narcissist. They don't destroy you with obvious cruelty. They destroy you with subtle manipulation. They don't break you with violence. They break you with guilt, shame, and confusion. They don't tear you down with insults. They tear you down with backhanded compliments and passive-aggressive punishment. So buckle up, because we're going into the mind of someone who's spent their whole life perfecting the art of manipulation while looking like the victim. We're going to pull back the curtain on their tactics, understand their psychology, and most importantly, learn how to protect ourselves from their invisible attacks. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about understanding difficult people. This is about recognizing predators who've learned to hunt in the shadows, who've perfected the art of emotional terrorism while maintaining their image as the wounded innocent. This is about your psychological survival, and it's time we started taking it seriously. Meet the person who's always been wronged, always been misunderstood, and somehow it's never, ever their fault. This is the Covert Narcissist's most powerful weapon. And let me tell you something, they've turned victimhood into an art form. They don't say, "Look at me, I'm amazing." They say, "Look at me, I'm suffering." And here's the twisted part, it works. It works because we're decent human beings who want to help people who are hurting. But they figured out how to weaponize vulnerability. They turn their pain into your obligation. Listen carefully, because this is important. They're not crying because they're hurt. They're crying because it works. Every sob story, every dramatic sigh, every "woe is me" performance is calculated. They've learned that tears get results, that suffering gets sympathy, and that playing the victim gets them exactly what they want without having to ask for it directly. Let me paint you a picture. You know that coworker who always has a crisis right before big projects? The one who suddenly gets overwhelmed, can't handle the pressure, and somehow you end up doing their work for them. That's not coincidence, that's strategy. They've trained you to rescue them, and you don't even realize it's happening. Or maybe it's that family member who brings up old wounds at every gathering. You know the one? They can't enjoy a simple dinner without reminding everyone about how they were mistreated 20 years ago. They're not processing trauma. They're wielding it like a weapon to control the room and make everyone walk on eggshells around them. Then there's the friend who makes everything about their problems. You call them excited about a promotion, and within 5 minutes, they've turned the conversation to their latest crisis. You share good news, and they respond with bad news. You need support, and suddenly their problems are bigger than yours. You can't have a moment of joy without them stealing it. Here's what's really happening: you become their emotional hostage. If you don't rescue them, you're the bad guy. If you don't fix their problems, you're unsupportive. If you don't drop everything to comfort them, you're selfish. They've created a system where your worth as a person depends on how much you sacrifice for their emotional needs. They've trained you to feel guilty for having boundaries. Think about it. When was the last time you told one of these people no, without feeling terrible about it? When was the last time you prioritized your own needs without them making you feel like a bad person? They've conditioned you to believe that taking care of yourself is taking away from them. And here's their genius. They throw the world's longest pity party, and you're the only guest who keeps showing up. Everyone else got tired of the drama and stopped coming, but you. You're still there, still trying to fix them, still believing that if you just love them enough, support them enough, sacrifice enough, they'll finally be okay. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. They don't want to be okay. Being okay would mean giving up their victim status, and their victim status is their source of power. It's how they control you, manipulate you, and get you to do things for them that you wouldn't normally do. They use their victim status to avoid accountability. Every time you try to address their behavior, they flip it back to their suffering. How can you be upset with me when I'm going through so much? I can't believe you're attacking me when I'm already down. You know how hard this is for me right now. Suddenly, you're the one apologizing for their bad behavior. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. Do you find yourself constantly apologizing to this person? Are you always the one who has to make things right? Even when they're the one who did something wrong, are you the one who ends up saying sorry? If you answered yes, you've been manipulated by a master. They've created a dynamic where you're responsible for their emotions, their reactions, and their life circumstances. Nothing is ever their fault. It's always something that happened to them, something someone else did, some unfair circumstance that they couldn't control. They're perpetual victims of life, and you're their designated rescuer. But here's what makes this so insidious: they're not just passive victims. They're active participants in creating their own drama. They pick fights they can't win so they can be the underdog. They make choices that guarantee failure so they can be the martyr. They sabotage their own success so they can be the victim of circumstances. And the whole time, you're watching this happen, trying to save them from themselves, not realizing that they don't want to be saved. They want to be pitied. They want to be rescued. They want to be the center of attention through their suffering because it's the only way they know how to get their needs met. The manipulation is so subtle that you don't even realize it's happening. They don't demand your attention. They guilt you into giving it. They don't ask for help. They manipulate you into offering it. They don't tell you what to do. They make you feel so sorry for them that you do it anyway. Here's the thing that really gets me: while they're playing the victim, they're secretly keeping score. Every favor you do, every sacrifice you make, every time you put their needs before yours, they're writing it down in their mental ledger. And in their mind, you'll never do enough to balance the scales. But here's what's really twisted: while they're playing the victim, they're secretly keeping score. Inside the mind of a covert narcissist, there's a running tally of everything you've ever done, and trust me, you're always in the red. They've got an internal ledger that would make an accountant jealous, and they're keeping track of every favor, every kindness, every time you had something good happen to you. Here's what you need to understand: in their mind, your success is their failure. When you get a promotion, they don't see your hard work paying off. They see evidence that life is unfair to them. When you buy a new car, they don't see you enjoying the fruits of your labor. They see something they deserve but don't have. When you find happiness, they don't celebrate with you. They calculate how your happiness makes them look. They remember everything. Every favor you've ever done for them, every time you've helped them out, every moment you've been there when they needed you. But here's the sick part: they don't remember these things with gratitude. They remember them as debts that you can never fully collect on. In their twisted logic, your kindness puts them in a position of owing you something, and they resent you for it. They don't celebrate your wins. They calculate how your wins make them look. When you share good news, watch their face carefully. You won't see genuine joy or excitement. You'll see them doing mental math, figuring out how your success affects their standing in the world. They'll say the right words, but their body language will tell you everything you need to know. Let me give you an example. You get a promotion at work, and you're excited to share it with them. A normal person would say, "Congratulations, that's fantastic, you deserve it." But the covert narcissist, they'll say something like, "Must be nice to have such supportive management," or "I guess it helps when you don't have kids to worry about," or "Well, you've always been lucky with these things." See what they did there? They took your achievement and made it about circumstances beyond your control. They minimized your effort, your skill, your dedication, and turned it into something that just happened to you. They're always trying to level the playing field, but the playing field exists only in their head. When they can't tear you down directly, they'll build themselves up in comparison. "I could do that job, but I'm probably overqualified," or "I've been offered positions like that, but I'm waiting for the right opportunity." They're constantly positioning themselves as your equal or better, even when they're not willing to prove it. Here's where it gets really toxic. They engage in what I call leveling behavior. If they can't bring themselves up to your level, they'll find ways to bring you down to theirs. And they're masters at this. They don't do it obviously. That would expose them. They do it subtly, systematically, and with plausible deniability. When you get a promotion, they get a headache. When you share good news, they suddenly remember all their problems. When you're having a good day, they find a way to bring negativity into the conversation. It's not coincidence. It's strategy. They can't stand for you to have something they don't have, so they'll find ways to steal your joy. The passive-aggressive punishment is their specialty. They don't directly attack your success. They undermine it. They'll give you backhanded compliments that sound supportive, but leave you feeling diminished. They'll conveniently forget important details about your achievements. They'll be strategically absent when you need support the most. Let me tell you about backhanded compliments. You look great. I wish I had time to spend that much on my appearance. Your house is beautiful. I could never live with such high maintenance. You're so lucky your job is easy. Mine is so stressful. Every compliment comes with a barb that's designed to take you down a peg. And the convenient forgetfulness. They remember every slight, every time you weren't available, every moment you didn't meet their expectations. But they conveniently forget your birthdays, your important events, your achievements. They remember what serves their narrative and forget what doesn't. Here's what really gets me: they can't be happy for you because your happiness threatens their victim narrative. In their mind, there's only room for one person to be special, and it better be them. If you're doing well, it means they're not the most deserving person in the room. If you're happy, it means they're not the most deserving of sympathy. Think about the parent who can't praise their child's achievements without somehow making it about themselves. You got into college. Well, I could have gone to college if I'd had the opportunities you have. The child's success becomes evidence of the parent's sacrifice, not something to be celebrated. Or the friend who changes the subject every time you share good news. You're excited about a new relationship, and they immediately start talking about their dating problems. You're proud of losing weight, and they start complaining about their metabolism. They can't let you have a moment of joy without stealing it. Then there's the partner who finds fault with everything you're proud of. You cook a nice dinner, and they complain about the cleanup. You get a compliment from someone, and they point out your flaws. You achieve something significant, and they remind you of your failures. They're like emotional vampires, feeding off your accomplishments and leaving you drained. But here's where it gets really dangerous. They use this scorekeeping to gaslight you. They don't just lie to you. They make you question whether you can trust your own memory, your own feelings, your own damn name. This is psychological warfare at its finest, and the covert narcissist has turned it into an art form. It's not the obvious "that never happened." It's the slow erosion of your confidence. They don't hit you over the head with blatant lies that you can easily recognize. No, they're much more sophisticated than that. They chip away at your reality one small doubt at a time until you're questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world around you. They don't argue with you. They make you argue with yourself. That's their genius. By the time you're done talking to them, you're not sure what's real anymore. You walk away from conversations feeling confused, doubting your own perceptions, and somehow convinced that maybe you're the one who's wrong. Let me tell you about their selective memory. They have a memory that always favors them, and what they remember and what actually happened are two different things. They remember every slight, every time you weren't perfect, every moment you didn't meet their impossible standards. But they conveniently forget their own mistakes, their broken promises, their hurtful words. You'll say, "Remember when you said you'd help me move and then didn't show up?" And they'll look at you like you're crazy. "I never said that. You must be confused. I was sick that day, remember?" Suddenly, you're the one with the faulty memory, even though you remember the conversation perfectly. Here's where it gets really insidious. They don't just manipulate facts, they manipulate your feelings about those facts. You're too sensitive, you're overreacting, you're making a big deal out of nothing. They don't attack your actions, They attack your right to have feelings about their actions. Think about this for a minute. How many times have you tried to express hurt or disappointment to someone only to be told that you're being too sensitive? How many times have you brought up a legitimate concern only to be told you're overreacting? They've taken your valid emotional response and made it the problem instead of addressing their behavior that caused it. This is emotional invalidation at its worst. They don't say your feelings are wrong. They say your feelings are excessive, inappropriate, or unreasonable. They make you feel like there's something wrong with you for having a normal human reaction to their bad behavior. Here's their favorite trick, the reframe game. They take your legitimate concerns and twist them into evidence of your character flaws. You're not upset because they broke a promise. You're upset because you're controlling. You're not hurt because they ignored you. You're hurt because you're needy. You're not disappointed because they let you down. You're disappointed because you have unrealistic expectations. Suddenly, you're the problem for having a problem with their behavior. They've taken your completely reasonable response to their unreasonable behavior and made you the villain in the story. Now you're defending yourself instead of addressing their actions. They keep you off balance, so you're always questioning yourself. That's their strategy, the confusion strategy. When you're confused, you're controllable. When you don't trust your own judgment, you become dependent on theirs. When you're constantly second-guessing yourself, you stop challenging them. Let me give you some of their favorite phrases, because once you recognize them, you'll hear them everywhere. I never said that. You're misremembering. I was just trying to help. That's not what I meant. You're being too sensitive. I was just joking. You're taking this the wrong way. I don't know why you're getting so upset. Sound familiar? Every one of these phrases is designed to make you doubt your own perception of reality. They're not taking responsibility for their words or actions. They're making you responsible for your reaction to their words and actions. Here's what really gets me fired up. They'll say something hurtful, and when you react, they'll say they were just joking. But here's the thing about jokes, they're supposed to be funny. When someone gets hurt by your joke, a normal person says, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you." But the covert narcissist, they double down. "Can't you take a joke? Why are you so sensitive?" "I was just kidding around." They use humor as a weapon and then hide behind it when you call them out. They'll say mean things disguised as jokes, and if you get upset, you're the one with the problem. You're the one who can't take a joke. You're the one who's too serious. By the time you realize what's happening, you don't trust your own judgment anymore. You've been conditioned to doubt your perceptions, question your memories, and second-guess your emotional responses. You've become dependent on their version of reality because they've systematically undermined your confidence in your own. They've made you dependent on their version of reality, and that's exactly where they want you. When you can't trust yourself, you have to trust them. When you can't rely on your own judgment, you have to rely on theirs. When you can't believe in your own perceptions, you have to believe in theirs. Here's what you need to do to protect yourself. Document everything. I'm serious about this. Keep records of conversations, especially important ones. Write down dates, times, what was said, what was promised. When they try to gaslight you later, you have proof of what really happened. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Your intuition is picking up on things your conscious mind might miss. Don't let them convince you that your instincts are wrong. Your feelings are valid, your perceptions are real, and your memories are accurate. But gaslighting is just one tool in their arsenal. They've also perfected the art of the humble brag. They've turned self-deprecation into an art form, and every "I'm not good enough" is actually a fishing expedition for compliments. This is manipulation disguised as humility, and they're masters at it. They don't say, "I'm amazing." They say, "I'm terrible at this," while doing it perfectly. It's false modesty designed to make you rush to their defense. They're not being humble, they're being strategic. They've figured out that in our culture, Bragging is socially unacceptable, but fishing for compliments through self-deprecation is not only acceptable, it's encouraged. Watch how this works. They'll post their best selfie on social media with the caption, "Oh, I look awful in this photo." They know damn well they look good. They spent 20 minutes getting the lighting right and took 50 shots to get that one perfect picture. But they can't just say, "I look great today," because that would be bragging. So instead, they say they look awful and wait for all the comments telling them how beautiful they are. They throw out the bait and wait for you to bite. "I'm so stupid. I can't figure this out. I'm probably going to mess this up. I'm not smart enough for this job." They're not expressing genuine insecurity. They're manipulating you into reassuring them. And here's the kicker: if you don't take the bait, if you don't rush to tell them how wonderful they are, they'll remember. They'll hold it against you. But here's what's really going on. Inside their head, they have grandiose fantasies about themselves. They think they're the smartest person in the room, the most talented, the most deserving. They just need you to discover their hidden greatness. They can't tell you directly how special they are, so they use reverse psychology to get you to say it for them. They suffer from what I call the undiscovered genius complex. They're always saving themselves for something better. They won't apply for jobs because they're overqualified, but they won't prove it by actually achieving something significant. They're waiting for the world to recognize their brilliance without them having to demonstrate it. I probably could have been a doctor, but I chose to be a teacher instead. I could have been a professional musician, but I wanted stability. I could have started my own business, but I'm too cautious. They're always the person who could have done something great if circumstances had been different. They're the perpetual what-if story. Listen to how they phrase their self-praise. "I'm probably too honest for my own good. I care too much about people, that's my problem. I'm too generous. I always put others first." See what they're doing? They're bragging about their virtues while pretending to complain about them. They're telling you they're honest, caring, and generous, but they're disguising it as a character flaw. This is the martyrdom angle in action. They sacrifice so much and they'll make sure you know it. But here's the thing about martyrs: they choose their suffering. They put themselves in situations where they can sacrifice and then use that sacrifice to manipulate others. I guess I'm just too giving. I always put others first. Translation: I'm better than you because I'm more selfless. You know what this reminds me of? Theodore Roosevelt's famous quote about the man in the arena. The one who's actually in there fighting, getting bloody, trying to accomplish something. The covert narcissist is the critic who never enters the arena. They'll tell you how smart they are, how talented they are, how capable they are, but they'll never show you. They expect you to see their potential and make excuses for their lack of achievement. If only I had your opportunities. If only I had your support system. If only I had your advantages. They want you to recognize their brilliance without them having to prove it through actual accomplishment. You become their personal cheerleader, constantly building up their ego while they do nothing to earn it. Here's how this plays out in real life. They'll say things like, "I'm not photogenic," while constantly posting pictures of themselves. They'll say, "I'm not a good cook," while making elaborate meals for everyone. They'll say, "I'm not good with money," while giving unsolicited financial advice. They're not being modest. They're fishing for compliments about their appearance. They're cooking their financial wisdom. And here's what's really manipulative about this: they get upset when you don't disagree with their self-deprecation. If they say, "I'm not good at this," and you say, "Okay," they'll be offended. They expect you to jump in with, "Are you kidding? You're amazing at this." If you don't, they'll pout, withdraw, or punish you in some passive-aggressive way. Do they constantly put themselves down but get upset when you don't disagree? Or are you always reassuring them about their worth? Do you find yourself building them up more than they build themselves up? If so, you're being manipulated by a master of false modesty. They've trained you to be their personal validation machine. Every time they express fake self-doubt, You're supposed to rush in with reassurance. Every time they downplay their abilities, you're supposed to build them up. Every time they fish for compliments, you're supposed to take the bait. But here's what really gets under their skin: criticism of any kind. Touch their ego even gently and watch the humble person turn into a raging volcano. This is when the mask comes off, and you see what's really underneath all that false modesty and victim playing. They can dish it out all day long, but they can't take even the smallest critique. Think about it. They'll spend hours pointing out your flaws, your mistakes, your shortcomings. They'll criticize your choices, your appearance, your decisions. But the moment you offer even the gentlest feedback about their behavior, all hell breaks loose. Their whole identity depends on being right, being special, being above criticism. That's why they react so violently when you challenge them. You're not just disagreeing with their opinion. You're threatening their entire sense of self. You're suggesting that they're not perfect, and that's something their fragile ego simply cannot handle. That quiet, passive person, they're seething inside. Don't let the calm exterior fool you. Behind that mask of humility is a person who's absolutely enraged that you dare to question them. They don't explode like the classic narcissist. They implode, then make you pay for it in ways that are much more insidious. Here's how they handle criticism. They don't defend their actions, they attack your right to question them. Instead of saying, "You're right, I should have handled that differently," they say, "I can't believe you're attacking me like this." Instead of addressing the issue, they make you the issue. Suddenly, you're the bad guy for bringing up a legitimate concern. They take your criticism and turn it into evidence of how they're being persecuted. In their mind, you're not giving feedback. You're being mean to them. You're not trying to improve the relationship. You're trying to hurt them. You're not addressing a problem. You're creating a problem. Here's their favorite move, the victim flip. The moment you criticize them, they become the victim of your criticism. "I can't believe you're saying this to me. How could you be so cruel? I'm already going through so much, and now you're attacking me too?" They've turned your attempt to address their behavior into evidence of your character flaws. When they can't win with words, they punish you with silence. The silent treatment is their nuclear weapon. They withdraw, they shut down, they give you the cold shoulder. They make you feel like you've done something terrible by simply trying to have an honest conversation about their behavior. And here's the sick part: they make you come crawling back apologizing for their behavior. You end up saying sorry for bringing up the issue. You end up feeling guilty for having legitimate concerns. You end up promising to be more understanding, more patient, more forgiving of their bad behavior. Let me tell you something about grudge holding. These people are Olympic champions at it. They remember every slight, every criticism, every time you didn't see their brilliance. They keep a mental file of every moment you've challenged them, questioned them, or failed to worship them. And they use that file against you for years. Remember last Christmas when you said I was being difficult. Remember when you criticized my cooking. Remember when you didn't support me during that argument. They bring up ancient history to deflect from current problems. They use your past criticisms to invalidate your current concerns. But here's where it gets really dangerous. They don't get mad. They get even, quietly and systematically. This is passive-aggressive revenge at its finest. They won't confront you directly. That would expose them. Instead, they'll sabotage you so subtly you won't even know it's happening. They'll forget to give you important information. They'll be too busy to help when you need them. They'll make innocent comments that undermine your confidence. They'll share your private information with others. They'll exclude you from events and then act like it was an oversight. They'll punish you for criticizing them, but they'll do it in ways that give them plausible deniability. Here's another one of their favorites: projection. They accuse you of being exactly what they are. You tell them they're being sensitive, and they say you're the one who's sensitive. You say they can't handle feedback, and they say you're the one who can't handle feedback. You point out their defensiveness, and they say you're being defensive. It's like arguing with a mirror. Everything you say about them bounces back at you. They take your valid observations about their behavior and throw them back in your face. It's crazy making, and it's intentional. Do they shut down completely when you try to discuss problems? Do they turn every conversation about their behavior into a conversation about your behavior? Do they make you feel guilty for having legitimate concerns? Do they punish you with silence, withdrawal, or passive-aggressive behavior when you try to address issues? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're dealing with someone who cannot handle criticism because their entire identity is built on being perfect. They can't admit they're wrong because that would shatter their carefully constructed image of themselves. Here's what you need to understand. Their reaction to criticism tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. A healthy person can listen to feedback, consider it, and either accept it or explain their perspective. An unhealthy person turns feedback into an attack and makes you the villain for trying to improve the relationship. You can't have a real relationship with someone who can't handle criticism. You can't grow together if one person is always right and the other is always wrong. You can't solve problems if one person refuses to acknowledge that problems exist. Understanding all this is crucial, but here's what you really need to know: how to protect yourself. You can't fix them, you can't change them, and you can't make them see what they're doing, but you can protect yourself. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about right now. Stop trying to get them to admit they're wrong. That's not going to happen. I don't care how much evidence you have, how logical your argument is, or how gently you present it. They will never, ever admit they're the problem. Your job isn't to make them self-aware, it's to keep yourself safe. You don't need their permission to protect yourself. This is crucial. You don't need them to understand your boundaries. You don't need them to agree with your boundaries. You don't need them to like your boundaries. You just need to set them and enforce them. Set boundaries based on their behavior, not their intentions. I don't care if they meant well or if they didn't realize what they were doing. If their behavior is harmful to you, that's enough. You don't need to prove malicious intent to protect yourself from the impact of their actions. Here's a strategy that works: the gray rock method. Become boring, uninteresting, not worth their manipulation. When they try to engage you in drama, be polite but bland. Don't give them emotional reactions. That's what they feed on. When they can't get a rise out of you, they'll eventually move on to someone else. Don't react to their provocations. Don't defend yourself against their accusations. Don't try to convince them you're right. Just be consistently calm, boring, and unresponsive to their manipulation attempts. They need drama like a fire needs oxygen. Cut off the oxygen and the fire dies. Keep records of conversations, especially important ones. I'm serious about this documentation approach. Write down dates, times, what was said, what was promised. When they try to gaslight you later, you have proof of what really happened. This isn't about building a case against them. It's about protecting your sanity. Don't try to handle this alone. Get outside perspective. Talk to people who see the situation clearly. The covert narcissist is skilled at making you feel crazy, but when you share your experiences with others, you'll realize you're not imagining things. You need that external validation to counter their gaslighting. You need to strengthen your relationship with yourself. Be your own best friend. Believe in your own perceptions. Your feelings are valid. Your memories are accurate. Your concerns are legitimate. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, especially someone who has a vested interest in keeping you confused and dependent. Sometimes the only way to win is not to play. If you can remove them from your life completely, that might be the healthiest choice. No contact means no contact. No phone calls, no texts, no social media stalking, no checking in through mutual friends. Cut the cord completely and start healing. When no contact isn't possible, limit your exposure. This is the limited contact strategy. Control what you share when you engage and how much access they have to your life. You don't owe them your time, your energy, or your emotional availability just because they want it. Don't share personal information with them. they'll use it against you. Don't attend every argument you're invited to. Don't respond to every manipulation attempt. You have the power to choose when and how to engage, and you should use that power strategically. Stop seeking their approval. You'll never get it. This is the validation trap that keeps you stuck. They need you to need them. Break that cycle. Your worth isn't determined by their opinion of you. Your value isn't dependent on their validation. You're going to feel guilty for setting boundaries. That's normal. Their manipulation has trained you to feel responsible for their emotions. You've been conditioned to put their needs before your own. When you start prioritizing yourself, it's going to feel wrong at first. That's not your conscience talking. That's their programming. Healing from covert narcissistic abuse takes time. You're not crazy, you're not overreacting, you're not the problem. You've been systematically manipulated by someone who's skilled at psychological warfare. Give yourself permission to heal, to feel angry, to grieve the relationship you thought you had. Remember, you can't control their behavior, but you can control your response to it. You can't make them be a better person, but you can become a stronger person. You can't fix them, but you can fix your boundaries. Share your experiences, but more importantly, share your protection strategies. Help others by telling them what worked for you. Break the silence that allows these people to continue their manipulation. When we talk about these behaviors openly, we take away their power. Your peace of mind is worth more than their approval. Your mental health is worth more than their comfort. Your happiness is worth more than their manipulation. You deserve relationships that build you up, not tear you down. I appreciate you spending this time with me, learning about this. Have a strong week, and remember, your peace of mind is worth more than their approval.